and welcome to my performance-based project. I am Allison Leggett. The instructional framework that I chose to do for my lessons is the Design Questions for Art and Science of Teaching by Marzano and Brown. The following instructional strategies are used throughout my 2 days. Actually, all 5 are used on each of the 2 days, and they will be discussed more during the screencast. I am a 2nd grade teacher, so this is a 2nd grade math lesson that I actually taught in class. The unit we worked on was for geometry and covered lessons on equal parts. That being said, it means that they will be able to identify and name equal parts of circles and rectangles as halves, thirds, and fourths. This particular lesson had the span of 2 days. Here's the content standard that we used for this lesson. Although we just focused on a very small part of it, this is the larger view of it. The curriculum that my district uses is called GoMath. This is our first year implementing it, and we have to implement it with fidelity. So both days that are covered in this lesson will be straight from it. That means all videos, all resources, everything comes straight from the GoMath curriculum. The first part of this lesson is the essential question. What are halves, thirds, and fourths of a whole? At this time, after we're done reading this, the meaning is discussed, and the following is done through an interactive whole group engagement lesson that's done through the GoMath again. And it hits all the Marzano-Brown design questions. We will talk about what we think this essential question means before we get started. That way we can bring up some prior knowledge before we get started. This brings us to the engagement part of the video. The video starts off with Jesse the bear greeting the students and posing some sort of problem that he's having. Jesse the bear is our 2nd grade character, and he is the constant throughout our curriculum. So every time we start a new unit, he's there guiding the students through what it is he wants them to learn. For this particular day, he has an apple, and he wants to know how he can share it in 2 equal pieces, and he wants to know what those 2 pieces could be called. He thinks that there's probably a special name for it, and he wants to find out about equal parts of a whole. This brings us to the explore portion of the video, and this part has students using pattern blocks together to make a larger shape. Students who I know will need extra help will have these actual pattern blocks in front of them that they can manipulate along with this portion of the video. So to start off, we have the yellow hexagon on the right, and the voice that comes on wants us to divide it into 2 parts. So we're going to use the red shape, and the children get up and they can click and drag and manipulate it to come up with that we need 2 equal parts to cover the hexagon. And then ask them to cover it with another shape a different way. So we use the triangles next, and that will give us 6 equal parts. And then we can compare the 2 parts side by side. And then it gives us a whole rectangle, and it describes it as 1 whole. And then it asks the children what would happen if we would divide it into halves. So the students at this time, they come up and they draw on my whiteboard what they think it means for a shape to be divided into halves. Once they do that, we check and see if they were right or wrong. So here's the 3 parts that this part works us through. It does halves, fourths, and thirds. Again, each time having the students come up and draw what they predict it will look like first. And we also discuss if there's other ways to divide it into fourths that would still be equal and thirds that would still be equal. Now we're in the explain portion of our video, and this is where students have a chance to put this into practice. It's called the Personal Math Trainer. There are 2 questions that are posed, and students work through them on their whiteboards and share out. Answers are checked by completing them on the classroom whiteboard for immediate feedback. These are the 2 questions for this particular lesson that the students work through together. Again, when they click check answer, we'll let them know if they're right or if they need to try it again. So after completing those 2 questions, the students will turn to page 748 in their math workbooks to do a quick formative assessment for me. That's what you see on the left here. On the share and show, students will work through these 6 questions independently as I walk around the room with the checklist. During this time while they're working on this, I'm noting if they're doing it correctly or if they're not anywhere close to where they need to be. So based off that checklist, I can form 2 groups. One group will be a reteach group. These are the kids who need extra practice. And we'll, together with my guidance, work through the page that is on the right called the Reteach 11.8. And basically what it does is we sit there and we work through everything again that we had just learned, using manipulatives if we need to, and having further discussions on materials. Now, if the students are good with the materials that we just learned, then they get to do the personal math trainer on their own. They do this on Chromebooks, sitting throughout the room, and they work on it independently as well. It's just like the personal math trainer that we worked on in class, however, this time it has more questions. This time it has 10. Here are 3 sample questions that the students will work through independently. During this time, again, I'm working with that reteach group. So once both groups are done, which usually times up pretty well at the same time, we come back together for a whole class closure. And we bring Jesse the bear back, and he basically thanks them for helping them solve his problem of how to divide his apple into 2 halves and what that is called. So the instructional strategies used on this day were reinforcing effort and providing recognition. This was done because students received on-the-spot affirmation of their answers throughout the interactive video. The characters were telling them good job or that they need to try again. Same thing while I was walking around the room and doing my small groups. Homework and practice was done more through the practice portion of it. I don't assign a lot of homework in my class, so that wasn't assigned at all during these 2-day lessons. However, they did receive a lot of practice. Cooperative learning was done when students were able to work through the video using cooperative learning through engaging and exploring these things with the kids that they were sitting with. We also did this through discussions and completing the exercises. For cues and questions, the strategy was used throughout the video by the various characters presenting and providing information. I also cued and questioned the students in my reteach group. And for non-linguistic representation, of course, manipulatives were used for the students who needed them, and whiteboards. That brings us to day 2, which actually is a shorter lesson than the previous day. This lesson also hits all the Marzano Brown design questions as well. So to start this day off, we need a review because it has been a day since we've learned the material. And the way that this curriculum does this is what's called a Math on the Spot video. And during this time, these characters over here on the right will work through a particular challenge. And today's challenge is about 3 minutes and 15 seconds long, and they are working to find out how to draw fourths and explain how you know the parts are fourths. So I am going to show you a quick portion of this video.
Hey, Joey, what are you wearing?
That's Detective Joey to you, and I'll ask the questions.
Oh, great, because I actually wanted to talk about a question involving fourths and equal parts.
Oh, well, give me the facts, Professor. Just the facts.
Absolutely, only if you'll help me.
Of course.
Great. So the challenge for us is to see if we can draw to show fourths. And we have to explain why, in fact, we know that the parts are really fourths.
Okay.
So fourths just means that we take some shape and divide it into 4 equal parts.
Well, let's try it.
Okay, sure. So let me first of all show you that you could actually physically do this. If you take something like a square, if you take a square, you could kind of fold it like this. I'm going to fold it in half this way. There's lots of ways of folding a square in half. I'll just do one way really fast. So here's one way. And so now we have 2 equal pieces. So these are actually halves, but we want, in fact, fourths. So I'm going to cut it again. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but it's going to make these 4 little nice triangles that all come together in a nice way. Let's see how nicely you can see this.
Let me see.
Hold on. Everyone calm down. There we go. Look at that.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And you can see that each piece, in fact, is equal because they folded on top of each other perfectly.
Yeah.
And you can see they all match up perfectly. So, in fact, this is a great model for fourths. And, in fact, I'll show you what the drawing would look like. You can draw it just taking a square and putting in the 2 diagonals. That's what we call them, diagonals. And it would look something like this, you see? So here's a nice pretty version of that.
Looks just like it.
Exactly. And so if I were to move this over here, then if I want to kind of fill in the blanks, I can see for ourselves that how many equal parts do we have?
So as you can see, the 2 characters work together to solve that problem. And then actually here we are at the end where they're able to find out that 4 equal parts is in fact fourths. During this time, students have out their whiteboards, and they're working right along with this video. After that, we have a discussion where we do more problems like what we just saw on the Math on the Spot video. And this brings us to our Elaborate section of our lesson. And this is the final stage of our lesson, and this is the On Your Own workbook page. During this time, they work on their own without help. And this allows me to know if I can move on to the next lesson the next day or if I need to spend more time. If more time is needed, then we'll do another day of small groups tomorrow. And during that next day, I would have another reteach group, and then I would have enrichment groups as well. So like all days, we like to have a closure, and when students are finishing up on their own page, they head to my carpet where we discuss successes and difficulties that they felt that we had during that day. Again, here are the instructional strategies that I used. So for the second day lesson, reinforcing effort and providing recognition. This was done during the discussion and further review, where students received praise for their efforts and positive feedback about whether they were right or wrong. Again, no homework was assigned, but the students received plenty of practice today. They practiced with table groups during the discussion and review, and they practiced the On Their Own workbook page. For cooperative learning, students cooperatively worked throughout the On the Spot video and discussion and the further practice that happened after it. Cues and questions. This strategy was used throughout the Math on the Spot video. This was also done during the discussion and further review part of the lesson. And for non-linguistic representation, students used manipulatives, whiteboards, and worksheets on this day. And that brings me to the end of my screencast. Just as a quick reflection, students did relatively well with this, and I ended up not needing to do an extra day and was able to move on. Geometry and shapes is very fun for the kids, and they really enjoy it, so I find that they actually learn quicker with it, and it's easier to move through. Thank you for listening to my screencast.